The soft beep of Katie Miller's analyzer was the only sound in her cramped office aboard Haven's Rest. A half-empty cup of cold coffee sat forgotten beside her terminal as her eyes widened at the decryption results. She'd been working on this particular transmission for weeks, an encrypted council communication that had taken all her considerable skills to break. 2 years after Earth had joined the Galactic Council, Katie had become the best signals analyst in the human delegation. Her job was to monitor and interpret the countless transmissions flowing through the neutral space station where representatives from all 13 species conducted their business. The humans were newcomers, the 13th addition to a political body dominated by 12 ancient species who had maintained an uneasy peace for nearly 3 millennia. Resolution 847, Katie whispered, as her translation algorithm finally completed its work. The text scrolled across her screen, its implications horrifying. It wasn't just a resolution, it was a detailed plan for the systematic elimination of human colonies throughout Council space. The document outlined strategic military positions, defense capability assessments, and even casualty projections. According to the timestamp, the Council had been planning this for months, even as they welcomed Earth's diplomats with false smiles. Katie's hands trembled as she downloaded the document to a secure drive. The Council saw humanity as a threat, too aggressive, too innovative, expanding too quickly. Resolution 847 was their solution: swift, coordinated genocide presented as a necessary security measure. She stood, her heart pounding. She needed to contact Earth immediately, but Haven's Rest was closely monitored. As she reached for her emergency transmitter, the door to her office slid open with a mechanical hiss. 4 Vaxtari security officers stood in the doorway, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the harsh lighting. Behind them stood Hierarch Zaktar, the highest-ranking council representative. Catherine Miller. Zaktar's voice was surprisingly soft for a being nearly 8 feet tall, with skin like polished obsidian. You have accessed restricted council communications. This constitutes a breach of Security Protocol 9A and is classified as an act of espionage. Katie backed away, clutching the data drive. This isn't espionage. It's self-preservation. I know what you're planning. Then, you understand why we cannot let you leave. Zaktar nodded to the guards. Take her to Detention Level 3. The Council will convene for an emergency tribunal in 1 hour. The trial, if it could be called that, lasted less than 30 minutes. Katie stood alone before the assembled representatives of the 12 founding species. No human delegates were present. They had been conveniently called away to discuss trade negotiations on a distant station. The evidence is irrefutable, announced Corvin, the Meridian representative. The human Catherine Miller has violated multiple security protocols and accessed classified council documents. The penalty for such actions is clear, under Statute 17. Katie raised her chin defiantly. You're planning to exterminate us. Resolution 847 is a detailed blueprint for genocide against humanity. I was doing my duty to my species. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Not all council members seemed comfortable with her accusation, but none spoke in her defense. Hierarch Zaktar rose from his central position. The security of the council supersedes all other concerns. Catherine Miller, you are hereby sentenced to immediate execution for crimes against galactic security. You can kill me, Katie said, her voice steady despite her fear. But Earth will know what you've done. They'll know what you're planning. They will learn a necessary lesson, Zaktar replied coldly. What Katie didn't know was that the Council had deliberately allowed her to decode Resolution 847. They wanted Earth to receive the message, after she was dead. Her execution would serve as both warning and provocation, designed to force humans into a reckless response that would justify the Council's planned intervention. The execution chamber was stark and clinical. A transparent booth with neural disruptors mounted on all sides. Katie was led inside by the guards, her steps faltering only once. A small recording drone hovered near the ceiling. Her death would be transmitted to Earth as a demonstration of Council authority. She straightened her back and stared directly into the lens. "My name is Katie Miller," she said clearly. "I discovered that the Galactic Council is planning to exterminate humanity. Resolution 847 outlines their entire strategy. Earth must—" The neural disruptors activated with a high-pitched whine. Katie's body convulsed. Her words cut short as invisible energy tore through her nervous system. She collapsed to the floor, her eyes still open, fixed on the camera until the last spark of life faded from them. The recording ended, and Hierarch Zaktar nodded with satisfaction. "Send the footage to Earth's government. Let them understand the consequences of defiance." Ambassador Charles Hayes sat in stunned silence as the recording of Katie Miller's execution played on the main screen of Earth's command center. Around him, military officers, intelligence analysts, and government officials watched with expressions ranging from horror to cold fury. President Lisa Rodriguez stood at the head of the table, her face a mask of controlled rage. When the recording ended, she turned to Hayes. "They executed one of our people for discovering their plans to exterminate us. Then sent us the footage. What diplomatic response would you suggest, Ambassador?" Hayes cleared his throat. "Madam President, we should request an emergency." "The time for diplomacy is over," interrupted Admiral Jake Thompson, his voice like steel. "They've been planning our extinction while smiling in our faces. Katie Miller died trying to warn us. We owe her more than diplomatic protests." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Jake is right. The Council has made its intentions clear. Ambassador Hayes, you will deliver one final message. Earth is withdrawing from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. All diplomatic ties are severed." She turned to a tall woman with silver-streaked hair, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. "Dr. Williams, is Phoenix ready?" Sarah Williams, head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Research, nodded grimly. "Yes, Madam President. All 3 phases are operational." "Explain it to everyone," Rodriguez ordered. Williams activated a holographic display at the center of the table. "Project Phoenix was initiated when we first joined the Council. While our diplomats made nice, our intelligence suggested the older species might not welcome us indefinitely. We developed 3 key technologies in secret. The hologram showed a sleek spacecraft, unlike any in Earth's known fleet. First, the Ghost Fleet, vessels with advanced cloaking technology that renders them virtually undetectable. We currently have 30 such ships positioned throughout Council space. The image changed to show a complex quantum circuit. Second, quantum displacement weapons. Unlike conventional weapons, these can bypass most Council shield technology by exploiting quantum uncertainties. Finally, the hologram displayed a simple black box with a pulsing blue core. And third, the Eraser Protocol, our most classified weapon. It doesn't destroy planets in the conventional sense. It removes them from existence by altering the quantum signature of matter itself within a targeted area. The affected region simply ceases to be. Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. "That's impossible," Hayes finally said. "The energy requirements alone." "We've had breakthroughs you weren't cleared to know about," Williams interrupted. "The technology works. We've tested it on an uninhabited moon in a distant system." President Rodriguez surveyed the room. "We didn't develop these weapons planning to use them. They were insurance, deterrence. But the Council has made its choice." She turned to Admiral Thompson. "Jake, initiate Operation Silent Thunder, Phase 1. Thompson nodded grimly. "Yes, Madam President." Within 12 hours, Earth's Ghost Fleet struck simultaneously at 27 Council military installations across 7 systems. The attacks were precise, surgical, and devastating. Council command centers, weapons platforms, and communication hubs disappeared in flashes of light as quantum displacement weapons bypassed their defenses completely. The Council, caught entirely by surprise, scrambled to respond. They had expected Earth to react emotionally to Katie's execution, perhaps launch a few ill-advised attacks that could be easily repelled, providing the perfect justification for their planned genocide. Instead, they found themselves facing an adversary who had anticipated their betrayal and prepared accordingly. Hierarch Zaktar convened an emergency session as reports of destruction poured in. "How is this possible?" demanded Thrix, the Solari representative. "Their technology was assessed as primitive compared to ours." "They deceived us," Zaktar admitted. "They showed us what they wanted us to see." A transmission interrupted their discussion. On the main screen appeared President Rodriguez, her expression cold and resolute. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, "you executed Katie Miller for discovering your plans to exterminate humanity. You believed us weak and unprepared. You were wrong." She leaned forward. "Earth is no longer a member of your council. We will defend ourselves with every means at our disposal. Any further aggressive action will be met with consequences beyond your imagination." The transmission ended abruptly. "They're bluffing," Corvin of the Meridians declared. "These surprise attacks represent the limit of their capabilities. We should proceed with Resolution 847 immediately, before they can regroup." 3 days later, a massive Council armada entered Earth's solar system. Over 200 warships, representing the combined military might of the 12 founding species, advanced toward humanity's homeworld. Their mission: to end the human threat once and for all. They encountered no resistance until they reached Mars' orbit. Then, suddenly, alarms blared across the Council fleet as sensors detected multiple energy signatures appearing out of nowhere. Earth's defense force materialized around them, 50 Ghost Fleet vessels that had been waiting, invisible, for the invasion. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Council military had experienced in 3 millennia of enforced peace. The human ships moved with impossible speed, their quantum weapons tearing through Council defenses as if they weren't there. Within hours, the mighty armada was reduced to scattered survivors retreating in disarray. Hierarch Zaktar watched the battle reports with growing dread. This was not the quick subjugation they had anticipated. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning. "We must reconsider our approach," suggested Nyx, the Aloran representative. Unlike most council members, the Alorans had been reluctant participants in Resolution 847. "Perhaps negotiate?" "No," Zaktar cut her off. "We cannot show weakness now. Implement the economic blockade. Cut off all supply routes to human colonies. They cannot sustain a prolonged conflict without resources." The blockade was established within days. All trade with human settlements was forbidden under penalty of immediate council intervention. An ultimatum was delivered. Earth had 72 hours to surrender unconditionally or face the full might of the combined council forces. In the secure bunker beneath New Geneva, Earth's leadership debated their response. "The blockade will strangle our outer colonies within weeks," reported Maya Johnson, head of intelligence. "Our Ghost Fleet can't be everywhere at once. And the Council is mobilizing their reserve fleets," Admiral Thompson added. "The next attack will be at least 3 times the size of the first." President Rodriguez looked to Dr. Williams. "What about Phase 2 of Silent Thunder?" Williams hesitated. "It's ready. But, Madam President, once we cross this line, there's no going back." "They crossed the line when they executed Katie Miller," Thompson said firmly. "They crossed it again when they tried to invade Earth. How many more lines do we let them cross?" Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. "The Council gave us 72 hours. We'll give them our answer then." She turned to Williams. "Prepare Phase 2. As the deadline approached, Council representatives gathered in their central chamber to receive Earth's response. Many expected capitulation. Surely the humans understood the futility of continued resistance against 12 ancient species with vast resources and technological superiority. President Rodriguez appeared on their communication screen exactly as the ultimatum expired. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice steady. "We have considered your demand for unconditional surrender." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled aliens. "Our answer is no. You threatened our existence. You murdered our diplomat. You attempted to invade our homeworld. These are acts of war, and we will respond accordingly." Zaktar stepped forward. "Your defiance is futile, human. You cannot hope to stand against the combined might of the Council. This is your final opportunity to save your species from extinction." "No, Hierarch Zaktar," Rodriguez replied coldly. "This is yours. Operation Silent Thunder. Phase 2. Execute." The transmission cut off abruptly. For several moments, nothing happened. Then alarms began to sound throughout the council chamber as reports flooded in from across council space. "Hierarch!" A Vaxtari officer burst into the chamber. "Unknown vessels have appeared in orbit around 9 council homeworlds. They're deploying some kind of device." The officer never finished his sentence. On the main display, live feeds from the affected planets showed a strange phenomenon spreading across their surfaces. It wasn't an explosion or any recognizable weapon effect. It was more like reality itself was being erased. Matter simply ceased to exist, leaving perfect voids in its wake. The process moved with terrifying speed, consuming entire continents in minutes. In the command center of the Ghost Fleet flagship Retribution, Colonel Parker watched the eraser protocol's effects with a mixture of awe and horror. As the operation's tactical commander, he had known intellectually what the weapon would do, but seeing it in action was something else entirely. "Status report," he ordered, his voice tight. "All 9 targets responding as expected, sir." His second-in-command replied, "Quantum erasure proceeding at calculated rates. Estimated completion time, 17 minutes. Parker nodded stiffly. 9 worlds. The homeworlds of the 9 council species, who had been most aggressive toward humanity, including Zaktar's own Vaxtari. The 3 remaining council species, the Alorans, Ventari, and Kithrin, had been spared, as they had either opposed or abstained from Resolution 847. "Sir," his communications officer called, "we're receiving thousands of distress calls from the affected systems." Parker closed his eyes briefly. "Maintain communication blackout as ordered. No responses." 17 minutes later, 9 planets that had been home to trillions of sentient beings simply no longer existed. Not destroyed, erased, as if they had never been there at all. The quantum signatures of their matter had been altered at the most fundamental level, removing them from the universe's equation. In the council chamber, chaos reigned. Representatives of the erased worlds had simply vanished mid-sentence when their homeworlds disappeared. The remaining council members, those from the 3 spared species, stared at empty chairs where their colleagues had been moments before. "What have they done?" whispered Nyx of the Alorans, horror evident in her voice. "How is this possible?" A new transmission appeared on their screen. Admiral Thompson's stern face looked out at the remnants of the once mighty council. "The Galactic Council as you knew it no longer exists," he stated flatly. 9 of your worlds have been removed using our eraser protocol. This is not destruction. It is erasure. They cannot be recovered or rebuilt. They are simply gone." He leaned forward. "This was our response to your plans for genocide. Earth will not be threatened again. The 3 remaining council species have been spared because they opposed Resolution 847. We are prepared to establish new relations with them based on mutual respect and equality." After the transmission ended, the survivors sat in stunned silence. 3,000 years of council dominance had ended in less than an hour. The power structure that had defined galactic politics for millennia had been wiped away by a species they had dismissed as primitive just 2 years earlier. The remaining Council forces across the galaxy surrendered within days. There was no fight left in them after witnessing the fate of their homeworlds. The blockade of human colonies was lifted immediately, and Earth's terms were accepted without question. In the aftermath, humanity faced its own reckoning. The deployment of the Eraser Protocol had saved their species from extinction, but at a terrible moral cost. Trillions of sentient beings, many of whom had no say in their government's decisions, had been erased from existence. It was a burden that would weigh on the human conscience for generations to come. 6 months after Operation Silent Thunder, President Rodriguez stood before the newly formed Galactic Alliance, a cooperative body established between Earth and the 3 surviving former Council species. The old Council chamber had been repurposed, its architecture of intimidation replaced with a design emphasizing equality and transparency. "We gather today to formalize a new beginning," she addressed the assembled representatives. "The alliance we establish will be founded on principles of mutual respect, shared prosperity, and collective security. No species will stand above others. No voice will be silenced." She paused, her expression solemn. "We must also acknowledge the terrible price paid to reach this moment. The Eraser Protocol has been dismantled. Earth renounces the use of such weapons now and forever. We bear the responsibility for our actions, even those taken in self-defense." Nyx of the Alorans, now serving as the Alliance's first coordinator, stepped forward. "We, too, bear responsibility. The Council's arrogance and fear led to this tragedy. We who survived must ensure such catastrophe never happens again." As the ceremony concluded, Maya Johnson found Admiral Thompson standing alone by a viewport, gazing out at the stars. "Thinking about Katie?" she asked quietly. Thompson nodded. She never knew what her sacrifice would mean, how it would change everything. "She saved us," Maya said. "Without her warning, we wouldn't have had time to prepare." "And 9 worlds wouldn't have been erased," Thompson added heavily. "I wonder if she would have considered that a fair exchange." Maya had no answer for that. None of them did. Earth had survived. But the victory came with a burden of guilt that would shape human identity for centuries to come. In a quiet office on Earth, Dr. Alex Hammond, chief ethicist and historian, recorded the first words of what would become the definitive account of the Council War. "When humanity joined the galactic community, we were naive enough to believe that advanced civilizations would have outgrown the capacity for genocide. When the Council killed a human girl for discovering their plans to exterminate us, we responded not just with retaliation, but with erasure. In our desperation to survive, we committed an act that will forever define us. This is the story of how the universe changed in 17 minutes. And the responsibility we all share for what comes next." He paused the recording and looked out his window at the night sky. The stars seemed different now, a reminder of both the vastness of possibility and the terrible power that came with it. "Power without compassion leads only to destruction," he whispered to himself, the words that would eventually conclude his history. It was a lesson written in the erasure of 9 worlds and the birth of a new galactic order, one that humanity would carry forward into an uncertain future. Katie Miller's name would be remembered across 1,000 worlds, the woman whose death sparked the end of one era and the beginning of another. A memorial stood in the center of New Geneva, a simple, holographic display showing her final moments, endlessly looping as a reminder of both what humanity had endured and what it had done in response. The universe had learned a painful truth. Earth didn't just retaliate when threatened. It erased the threat entirely. It was a reputation that would ensure peace for generations, even as humanity worked to prove they deserved a better legacy than the one written in the quantum void where 9 worlds once existed. Hierarch Zaktar had been right about one thing. Humans were different from the ancient species of the Council. But he had fatally misunderstood the nature of that difference. It wasn't just their adaptability or their technological innovation. It was their capacity to go further than anyone expected when their survival was threatened. The Council had killed a human girl to send a message. Earth's response had rewritten the stars themselves. In the vast emptiness where Zaktar's homeworld had once orbited, a single Ghost Fleet vessel remained on perpetual patrol. Its mission was not military, but memorial, a silent witness to the place where trillions had been erased, and a constant reminder of the responsibility that came with such terrible power. Aboard that ship, a small crew maintained their vigil year after year. They were the keepers of the void, guardians not of a place, but of its absence. Their presence was humanity's acknowledgement that while the erasure could not be undone, it must never be forgotten. From the void of non-existence to the halls of the new alliance, the echoes of Katie Miller's final words continued to resonate. Earth must. She had never finished that sentence, but humanity had answered it for her in the most definitive way possible. Earth must survive. Earth must defend itself. Earth must ensure such threats never arise again. And perhaps most importantly, Earth must bear the weight of its actions and strive to be worthy of its survival. The new galactic alliance grew and evolved in the years that followed. Former enemies became allies, united by shared trauma and common purpose. The three surviving Council species brought their ancient wisdom to the partnership, while humanity contributed its innovation and adaptability. Together, they forged something unprecedented, a galactic community based on genuine equality rather than dominance and fear. In a quiet ceremony on the 10th anniversary of Operation Silent Thunder, President Rodriguez, now retired from public office, visited Katie Miller's parents at their home in Montana. She brought with her a small data crystal containing the full, unredacted account of their daughter's actions and their consequences. She saved us all, Rodriguez told them simply. Everything that followed, both the terrible and the transformative, began with her courage. Katie's mother took the crystal with trembling hands. "Was it worth it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "All those lives." Rodriguez had no easy answer. "History will judge us," she said finally. "But I believe Katie would want us to build something worthy of her sacrifice. That's what we're trying to do." As night fell over the Miller home, Katie's parents activated the data crystal. The full story of their daughter's final days and the galactic upheaval that followed played out before them. They watched, tears streaming down their faces, as the girl they had raised became the fulcrum upon which the fate of entire civilizations had turned. In the end, Katie Miller had been both the spark and the symbol, the human whose death had revealed the true nature of both the Council and humanity itself. Her unfinished warning had echoed across the stars, answered by the most devastating weapon ever conceived. When the Council killed a human girl, Earth didn't just retaliate. It erased them. And in the void, where ancient worlds had once existed, a new future began, one haunted by the ghosts of 9 erased civilizations and guided by the hope that such power would never need to be wielded again.